Good evening, everyone, and welcome you all to yet another great event here at District 101. How are you all feeling? Hopefully, you have been having a great day, and your day or evening is about to get much, much better with our speaker today as well. So, let me go ahead and welcome our speaker for today, Maryam Ganni, who's the second runner up of the World Championship of Public Speaking 2023. Maryam has been a Toastmaster for exactly 2 years before winning the coveted title at the World Championship this year. Her initial motivation for joining was to become a part of the community of like-minded individuals who shared similar aspirations. She aimed to enhance her public speaking skills, both for professional as well as to reach broader audience with her own stories. She views her journey to securing the third place in the competition as a valuable opportunity to leverage her voice for the greater good, serving and motivating those around her. Maryam considers herself as a perpetual learner and plans to remain a dedicated student in the realm of public speaking. In addition to her speaking endeavors, Maryam is a passionate advocate for individuals with visual impairments. She actively engages with companies to discuss topics related to accessibility, diversity, inclusion, utilizing her personal brand, which she has established under her own name, Maryam Ganni Enterprises Inc. And today, Maryam is going to share her story of trials to triumph with all of us here at District 101. With that, the stage is all yours, Maryam.
Thank you so much. If you don't mind, I'm going to set an alarm for myself so I don't pass the timing. Set an alarm in 30 minutes. So thank you so much for having me. I'd like to start with a small story that has really touched me recently. It's a story about a young boy. He's 11 years old. His name is David. David is passionate about sports. He loves it. He practices it. And one day, David gets into a very bad accident. He loses his left arm. He can no longer practice his favorite sports. But something in David tells him that he needs to continue. He's so passionate that he feels the need to continue practicing sports. So he registers for judo, martial arts. Some of you know it's a Japanese martial art. But he feels disadvantaged because he only has one arm. He meets his coach, or his mentor, we call it sensei in Japanese. And his coach starts teaching him movements. But David realizes that his sensei keeps teaching him the same move every single week, week after week, month after month. So he asks his sensei, why are you teaching me the same move? I mean, I want to learn something new. But his sensei tells him, David, trust me, just keep practicing. So he keeps practicing the move, and the day comes where he is in a tournament against an opponent. David has to fight against someone who has two arms and who's known as a champion before. So he fights with him and he wins the fight. Now he goes to his coach and asks him, Sensei, how did I win? And he told him, David, for two very specific reasons. Number one, I taught you the most difficult move and technique to master in judo, and you've learned to master it. And number two, it implies that your opponent has to grab your left arm. Now, what happened there is that David's perception shifted completely on his weakness. All of a sudden, what he was perceiving as his weakness became his greatest strength and gave him edge. Now, we all have something that we perceive as a weakness. We all have something that we can perhaps think of as something that will stop us, that will slow us down, that will make us freeze, stagnate, paralyze us. What has done that to me and my weakness started in 2013. Now, I was in my very early 20s. I just came back from a backpacking trip. I was a very adventurous, bubbly, curious, you name it, carefree person who loved traveling, exploring the world. I was a professional makeup artist. I'd gotten certified when I was 19, and I was just enjoying life. But I noticed something was off during my trip. So I decided to go to the doctor and check it out. And what started as a normal checkup ended in the doctor walking into the room, going through his files, looking into my eyes for 5 short minutes. And he just looked at me and said, Maryam, you're going blind. At that point, all my dreams had came crashing. My world turned upside down. I remember him telling me and painting a picture of my life that had limits all over it. It was disabled, it was disadvantaged, it was defective. He told me that finishing university would almost be impossible because I wanted to continue studying in another field. He told me that I should change my job because I could no longer be a makeup artist. And he told me that walking around by myself at night and traveling alone like I did was not going to be possible. And he named so many other things, including driving. He even said getting a boyfriend would be difficult because nobody would accept that condition. I remember at that very moment, I called my mom. I was 21. I called my mother. And I cried for the first time as an adult to my mom, asking her, I said, Mom, do you know someone who's blind in the family? She said, I don't think so. No, why? And I said, well, I'm going blind. And I remember that day, my father and my whole family gathered at the clinic. My dad asking the doctor, he said, Doctor, can I please give her my eyes? I'll never forget that moment. That is when I decided that I could not show any weakness to nobody, to anybody in my family, to anybody in my entourage, that I refused to talk about it. I just wanted to avoid it, throw it under the rug, pretend like nothing happened, and just continue living my happy-go-lucky life. I remember going on, trying to just pretend like this didn't happen. And as time passed, things started to come up. I started bumping into things. I started bumping into people, tripping, stumbling, falling, embarrassing myself in public. And sometimes I got into very awkward situations. Now, I really want to tell you that story. It was particularly difficult and different when I was going on dates. Now, I didn't want to meet anybody outside because I didn't want them to see that I was visually impaired. So I decided to go online and meet somebody there, and probably would be easier for me because I remained in my comfort zone. Now, I met this guy, French guy. His name was Jérémy. Now, Jérémy was an interior designer. He had a French accent. He seemed so charming. And I remember I never told him anything about my eyesight. All he could see was picture perfect, a girl who looks like she knows exactly where she's going, confident, well put together. I remember even choosing the spot where we were going to meet the first time. I knew where we were going because I know exactly what it looks like. It was well lit, no stairs, perfect for me. So I get there before him when I usually get there fashionably late. I FaceTime my confidant, my best friend who knew about all of this. I asked her to help me pick something on the menu before he gets there. Now, everything is good. I pick something. He just on time, he comes in. I stand up confidently to say hi. I'm like, hi. Apparently, I was looking behind him because he turned around and said, what are you looking at? I said, oh, well, the wall behind you. I mean, you're an interior designer. It's just so lovely. And he just looked at it again and looked at me with an awkward smile. And he said, well, Maryam, it's a plain white wall. I said, oh, well, no, the tone of white is gorgeous, right? So I thought, okay, well, probably already thinks I'm weird. Let's just continue, pretend like nothing happened. So we're sitting down, we're having a conversation. The waitress comes and we're about to order. And I, of course, I'm very confident because I know exactly what I'm ordering. So I can flip through the menu. I flip through the menu for 5 long minutes. And then the waitress comes, but he has this awkward smile that comes back. And I'm like, okay, what is it now? Why is he giving me this awkward smile again? And then I state, I would like the brie crepe with the, I picked something fancy on the menu. And then he said, he put his arms forward, he grabbed the menu, he did this, and he said, you mean this is what you want? I wasn't sure if I should tell him that I liked looking at life from a different perspective. I definitely thought this was a fail, but I kept going. Now at this point, we're eating, and I had long hair extensions at the time. I wanted to really look cute, not look clumsy. I wanted to make sure I didn't do anything wrong because at this time I had no more chances. I knew this guy was going to think I was the biggest weirdo. So we were eating, but then the awkward smile comes back. And I'm thinking, now what? At this point, he reaches out and he tells me, wait, you're rolling your entire hair around your fork. So I pick up my fork. Yeah, I was eating my own hair. Now I was so desperate, I wanted to grab a napkin and poof, my hand goes right in his water glass. He looks at me and says, that was my water, Maryam. I said, yeah, I know, I'm just trying to clean it off, So I'm thinking now he probably thinks I have absolutely no manners. Yeah. Apparently, Jeremy was into weirdos because he wanted to go for a drink after. Now, I insisted I really wanted coffee. Eventually, he won. We went to a bar, and I really needed to go to the washroom. So I put my bag on the bar, making sure I'm going to find my seat. I go to the washroom, come back out. I go sitting next to my bag, and I say, hey, what's up? Then I realize he's being a little bit unresponsive. Oh, he's wearing a hat? And he has a beard? Oh, that's weird. I didn't notice that before. But then I turn around and I realize my date is actually standing behind me and I was talking to the wrong guy. You guessed it. There was no second date. Now, after that very embarrassing encounter, I refused to go out. I didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to take chances, didn't want to get outside of my comfort zone. I quit university. I lost my job as a makeup artist. I lost friends. I lost relationships and all hope. And I remember one day I was coming back from a checkup, from a follow-up from my doctor. And the conversation was very simple. Maryam, I don't even know why you're here. I can't do anything for you. We both know what's going to happen. Just go out there and live your life. I remember walking back to my downtown Montreal apartment, not caring where I was walking, what I was doing. Cars were honking. I remember somebody yelling, are you crazy? Are you trying to kill yourself? I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I just wanted to get back to my downtown apartment, sit on the floor and break down. And that's exactly what happened. I just remember being by myself on the floor, crying and wondering, who am I? And what am I going to do with my life now? At that point, I felt like I hit rock bottom. When you hit rock bottom, you feel like there's no more hope. But I didn't know it back then. But when we hit rock bottom, I was actually at the best place I could be. I know this sounds weird, but today I can see that so clearly, that rock bottom was the best place I could be, because the only way you can go after hitting rock bottom is back up. And I remember, and I know that So many times when we hit rock bottom, we feel like this is the end. We feel like there's no more help. We feel like there's no more way out. We're blinded. I was actually more blinded then than I am today. I remember thinking, I'm alone dealing with this. But often, when we're about to give up, is exactly the time that we feel broken, but we're actually about to break through. We're on the edge of breaking through. And I remember grabbing my phone and thinking, you know what? What do I have to lose? I'm going to go on Google and just search up retinitis pigmentosa, which was my condition, success stories. And then I found Miss April Lufriu, Miss Universe and Miss World or Miss USA 2011. And I started reading about her story and I realized she has the same condition as me. She's losing her sight. She won both of these titles. She's the oldest person, in fact, to win these titles. She has 2 kids that have the same condition and she's raised these kids. She started a business and all that around her passion and her purpose and around her visual impairment. And I remember sending her an email that day and telling her about my story. And she responded and said, Maryam, whatever you're going through right now, you'll be able to use it to help people one day. You are going to be the light for other people, just like I was. I turned my pain into power. I turned my pain into my passion and my purpose. And so can you. And she said, that is called hope. And she wrote hope in big letters. I still remember it today, HOPE. And I remember from that day on, I made a decision that I was going to reinvent myself and start living all over again. I was going to take that chance, that I was going to rewrite my story and give myself one last chance for my breakthrough. I didn't want to be broken. I wanted to break through. So I remember walking into the doors of a vision rehabilitation center. They asked me, they said, what do you want to learn, Maryam? And I said, well, I want to learn everything. I want to learn how to do everything all over again. Teach me. I remember having to learn Braille. So it's the language for people who are visually impaired and blind that it's the raised bumps, if any of you know it. I remember learning how to navigate my phone with accessibility, with Siri, how to read and write again, but with technology. I remember having to navigate around my house differently, having to organize my clothes differently, having to cook differently, having to go down the stairs differently. I had to learn my cardinal directions. I learned the most dreaded thing, the white cane, how to walk with it. And I had to open it in public. And now I was going to be labeled blind, disabled. I remember I met somebody at the center. She was a beautiful lady, soft-spoken, French, probably in her mid-40s. And she would always, and I call her Angelique, because she was a true angel to me. She would always tell me, Maryam, you have to be unstoppable. Unstoppable. She said, fear is false evidence appearing real. As Zig Ziglar said it, whatever you're thinking in your head does not exist. You do not. Your weakness is your greatest power. You don't know what you're capable of doing until you actually take the chance and take the step. But you have to be unstoppable. She said, being unstoppable is not avoiding the difficulty. It's actually going through it and overcoming it. And once you know how to do it, you're going to do it over and over again with ease whenever life throws lemons at you. And I remember that day, she gave me the power and the courage to go to a networking event for the first time with my white cane. Of course, I walked in there. Everybody was looking at me. I felt so awkward. It was so uncomfortable. But whoever told us that doing something different was ever going to be comfortable? Change is always going to be painful. And I remember it being so painful. I felt like I had ripped off a Band-Aid. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to remember what Angelique said, and I'll just pull through this pain. And I have to be unstoppable. I have to not even think of those fears and all those comparing myself to other people and thinking what they're thinking of me. And surely enough, That day there was a speaker. He came up to me before he spoke and he said, I don't know him. He said, I'm so glad, Maryam, that you're here today because I'm going to talk about a book that I wrote about a lady who's blind and she has a white cane, and I did a pilgrimage. I walked alongside of her the whole way. And I'm so glad that there's at least one person who can relate in this room, in this audience, to what I'm going to talk about. And I just remember thinking, if I didn't bring my cane today, if I didn't show up in this world, in my authentic self, I would have never made this genuine, authentic, encouraging encounter. And I watched him speaking and I thought, wow, I wish I could do this one day. He has so much strength talking about his story. Maybe it could be possible. And that same month, I went back to university with my white cane. And in that first class that I walked into, after my presentation in class, my professor walked up to me at McGill University. And he said, his name is Brendan. He said, hey, Maryam, have you ever thought of being a public speaker? And I was in awe because I thought, is he reading through my mind? I thought, yeah, I would love to, but I don't know how to do it, what I would talk about. He said, well, you just talk about your story because you have a story. We all have a story and your story can inspire. He said, believe it and you will see it, young lady. And I remember him giving me the opportunity to speak in his class. And ever since that day, I've been speaking in Brendan's class. And through his classes, I met someone who told me about Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters about 2 years ago. And I remember the first person I met was the founder of the club I joined, Honey's Toastmasters. His name is Scott McLaughlin. He quickly became my mentor. And after hearing my first story and icebreaker speech, he asked me, he said, Maryam, have you ever thought of competing? I said, competing for what? He said, well, there's a speaking competition, and you can get on the international, the world stage. And I thought, me, the world stage? I didn't even know there was a competition for public speaking. What is it about? Is it the person who says the most words in 1 minute? How does that work? So we started working together on that. I remember Scott acting as my mentor and a light on my path. He really guided me towards this. It was a 1 year of intensive studying. I felt like a real student. I was consuming all kinds of resources, material, how to be a better speaker. I listened to all these champions and I was asking him questions, and I was just doubting myself, doubting my story. And I remember him telling me, Maryam, he said the same thing. He said, fear is false evidence appearing real. Just keep going, one contest at a time. Just share your story with no fear around it. All you need to know is you have a purpose. You need to be aligned with your purpose. You need to be aligned with your values, with your core. Who is Maryam and what does Maryam have to say to the world? And I can ask you the same thing today. What do you want to tell the world? What is the story that has brought you difficulty and pain in your life that you can turn around and share it so that you can create power out of it? What is the trial that you've gone through? Because we've all gone through trials. Nobody said this life would be easy, right? And so what is that trial that you can take and write it down into words, make it into a story, turn it into a story that you can share with the world that will show your triumph, how you pulled through your trial. And that would be my question for you today. I want you to think about it, because I remember not believing in myself at all at that time, believing that my story was maybe not going to be relevant because not everybody was losing their sight. But I remember Scott telling me, you can talk about an encounter with a butterfly and turn it into a powerful story, because we all have a story in us. So I remember at that time, we worked really hard, one contest at a time. And eventually, I couldn't believe it, I made my way with my straw story. I wrote a speech about the straw, and that story brought me all the way to the world stage. And finally, in August of this year, I finished third in the world with my second speech. Now, what I learned from that is that after our difficulty, is where the real reward comes. But it's the hardest step to take is that step forward. The hardest step to take is the step after we've hit rock bottom. It's because we want to give up. That's the time, that's the hardest. But I learned from Angelique, from Brendan, from Scott, that to be unstoppable, you have to have two foundational principles. And I'd like to share them with you today. Like any person, like even a company would need these principles for times of crisis, for times of difficulty, to fall back on. The first one that I'd like to share with you is called, well, I called it the foundation. Now, the foundation is like if you look at a tree, if it loses its leaves during the fall and it loses all the top, the crown of the tree, it's still left with the roots. That's what holds it together no matter what happens. And so the foundation, you can call it your essence, you at your core. You can call it the human spirit. You can call it your soul. You can call it whatever you want. It's your core, it's your basis. And that human spirit is unshakable, unbreakable, and unstoppable. And that human spirit can go through trials and still triumph, no matter what. So you can lose your family, you can lose your friends, you can lose your job, you can lose your eyesight, but you'll never lose these three things. And those are the three core elements. Number one, it's the values, your values. Your values make up who you are. So I look at it as the way that I look at my life, and maybe you can look at it like that with me. So I'm going to paint that picture for you. Imagine you're going on a journey, on a trip. You're traveling from one country to the other, and you're walking there. That journey comprises of an itinerary, a path that is traced, a destination, and a reason. And so your values are those markers that trace your path, that mark your path. So if there's a storm, if there's snow that falls, wherever you are, if there's anything, if you lose your footing or you lose track, when you know your core values, when you know that when you've traced that path, it's easier to get back and to realign yourself with your actual path. So whenever you feel lost, if you have your core values that are strong and defined, it's very easy to go back. And I had to redefine my values and reevaluate, who am I? What do I believe in? I realized that I believe strongly in authenticity, in forgiveness, being authentic, not lying to people, not pretending like I'm someone that, like during the date, I didn't tell that guy that I couldn't see, but had I been authentic in my genuine self, I would have never gone through this. It would have been way easier for me. So being authentic, being genuine, being forgiving those who cannot handle the difficulties that I went through and had to walk away from them. Being loving, believing in kindness and generosity and giving. One of the reasons why I wanted to start speaking is to give, is to share my story with people and share hope and light with people. So those are my values. Now I have a little exercise that I shared with Raji, and I would love to share it. Not yet, I'm just gonna finish those and then we can maybe share it. I would love for you to look at it. It's a list of 50 values. You might not have the time to do it all now, but I'd love for you to take a screenshot to keep it with you. And the exercise, I did that with my coach, one of my coaches, before getting on the world stage, because I was searching for that perfect message to incorporate in my speech. I wanted to craft the best message, the best speech. And my coach told me, Maryam, hold on a second. Are you writing a message in a speech because you want it to be good and to be a winning speech? Or do you want to write it because this is who Maryam is and what she wants the world to see? Because he told me something that really marked me. He said, who you are on stage will shine brighter than what you say. And that depends on your core values. And I remember going through the values. So it's 50 values and you have to cut them down to 25 and then to 10 and eventually to 5. And those 5 values are your ride or die. No matter what happens, you're always going to believe in them. It's really not easy because you might believe in all of this, the 50, but the 5 are the core primary ones that truly define you. Now, moving on to the second point is, after values, is vision. This one to me is very simple. Even Oprah Winfrey, I remember her always saying, you need to have a vision in life. I felt like losing my sight was nothing comparing to the vision that I gained. I might have lost my sight, but I gained so much more vision. And the vision, going back to the imagery of you walking on that path and on that journey, traveling from one country to the other, you have your path. The vision is the North Star. It's that light that you want to get to. It's the destination. It's knowing where you're headed to. And that vision, no matter what happens, nobody can take away from you. Nobody can take away your vision, no matter what happens in your life. And the last thing is mission. Your mission, your purpose. That is the why. That's the reason why you're doing this. Just like Chris asked me during my speech writing, he said, why are you writing this speech? Why are you writing this story? Why do you want to share this message with the world? And I remember thinking back, because I want to inspire people. So your purpose, your mission is the reason why. It's what drives you to thrive through difficulty. It's what fuels your passion to achieve and to accomplish and to get to that Northern Star. And the second concept after foundation is your support system. Now, the support system is everything, all the network that is around the foundation, around the tree. So that would be the people, because I realized that walking along where I was supposed to walk, taking the trail that I was supposed to take, taking that path that I was meant to be on, was actually making me lose people around me. People that I wasn't supposed to be having around me, people who weren't lifting me up. But along that journey, I met people who started to light up my path with a torch, people who were directing me, telling me where to go. And you'll be surprised that when you're stepping into your purpose, on your path, when you're aligned with your values and your purpose, these people will magically appear in front of you, and they will be there to help you, to guide you. And you'll be even surprised that they'll pick you up when you can't walk anymore. And so that's what I call the support system. There's one quote that I absolutely love, and I'm pretty sure you know it, is to alone we get there faster, but together we get there stronger. I think together we get there faster and stronger. Now, before I conclude, I really, if we have the time, I know we're at 30 minutes, so I think we have a couple of minutes. We're right on time for that, to do the exercise. If you want to just go through the values and reflect on them, and I can take the bravest person who wants to share what they've picked as their values. I'll let Raji take over.
Sure, Maryam. So I would recommend everybody to go ahead and take a screenshot so that you have these values on your end as well, and break them down and start picking out the first 25 for column 1. And then in column 2, narrow them down to 10.
Mm-hmm.
From 10, narrow them down to 5 in column 3. And like Maryam said, you may not be able to complete this in a few minutes.
Yes, I know it's not easy. It was so hard. I felt like I was giving up so much when I was making the decision, but just for the sake of, doing the exercise, it's interesting because you really get to know yourself more when you go through them. So I guess we can give, I don't know, Raji, you're the boss here, so you can decide how many minutes you want to allocate to that.
Sure. Let's plan for, say, 10 minutes so we have enough time for question and answers.
Sure.
If folks want to also think about the questions they would want
Of course, yes.
Maryam to answer as well. So think about those in 10 minutes. So we are at 6:34. So take your time till 6:44 to reflect on this. Meanwhile, if folks have questions, feel free to go ahead and post them in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. Posted the image in the chat as well in case you want to work on your own copy.
I forgot to suggest elevator music in the meantime.
Looks like somebody is done with the activity as well. Pretty quick.
Oh, wow.
So, Mariam, we do have brave people in District 101 who are really fast as well.
Yeah, I see that. I love it. I'm ready to listen.
Mariam, we have a slightly off-topic question. I don't know if you want to answer it. We noticed a tattoo on your wrist.
This one.
What does that signify?
This one says, I love you, and it's in my father's handwriting. So I made him write it when I was about 26 years old. I didn't tell him. I got it tattooed, and then I showed it to him. And that inspired my speech title, You Have No Idea, the world speech.
Right. Very beautiful, very
Thanks
sweet
for
of you.
asking.
Yeah, and really heart-touching speech as well. So
Thank you so much. That I was asked that right after, how did you get inspired? And I mentioned the tattoo as well. Thankfully, he approved of it.
he hardly had choice, I think, since it was so emotional as well.
Permanent, and it was emotional. Well, I was caught off guard because he said, no, go to remove it right now. I said, no, it's done, look at it, it's permanent. So he looked at me, he did this. He didn't say a single word after. And then he was happy.
How's everyone doing? Do we have more brave people in the room, or folks who kind of finished? Maryam, we have folks posting in the chat. Did you want to get started with some of them sharing while others are still working?
Sure, absolutely. I would love to. Can I ask you to be my sidekick and read the answers?
Sure. Or I would rather want them to unmute themselves and read it
Or
out.
that would be great. Absolutely. I would love to meet
So,
everyone.
Sandra, would you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and share the values, your true core values with all of us here?
Thank you. And I love this exercise. 1, equality. 2, respect. 3, one I added, patience.
Oh, I love that one.
4, integrity. And 5, unity.
Oh, I love those ones. Did you add patience? It wasn't on there?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'll probably add it on there, actually. Thank you so much. I really love integrity. I had a hard time with that one. I was thinking, is it kindness or integrity? But I love the values. Is there a reason why you picked some of those?
The turmoil in the world puts a lot of things into perspective. But I also, my favorite book is what I read as a child, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, I remember that one.
And it really opened my eyes to looking at people differently. And having respect for people regardless. We don't choose who, where, what color, what faith. We don't, most of those things are not our choices. So why do we judge people on them? And so I'm very much about looking at the whole person and looking into their heart and then showing that back. And that takes patience. It takes learning emotionally and vulnerably.
Yeah.
And I think vulnerability, I don't know if that was on your list, but I like that one too, because it means that you're open to others.
Yes, I think I remember asking my coach, he said, well, it could go with authenticity. They can go in the same. That's why I picked it, because that's what I wanted to that's what I also believe in. It's to be genuine, be transparency. Thank you so much. That's lovely. And I'm so glad we got to connect and share. This actually really inspired me. So thank you so much. It's Sandra, right?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Sandra.
I'm going to use this with my mentees. I think it will help them find their purpose for their speeches as well.
It really helps. I remember that is the only time he pulled it out. He said, okay, you're off track right now. I don't know if you're aligned. I don't even know if you're doing this for the right reason. You have to reevaluate what your purpose is and what you want the world to see. And I remember that was the best thing, the best gift he could have ever given me right before, because that's actually, if I can share that with you quickly, is that was 2 weeks before the contest. I scrapped the speech entirely of what I was writing, and I wrote a whole new one. And that was the one that was called You Have No Idea. That's the one that I delivered on the world stage. And that was the very reason why. Yeah,
it was a very touching speech, and I really appreciated it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Lipping, did you want to share your core values with all of us? Why you picked those?
Sure. First, thanks, Maryam, and for the heartfelt story and your experience. It's very inspiring to me. And I picked the 3 directly. And first, the authenticity, because without authenticity, we are not ourselves. So no matter what you do, what you share, it's just cheating. If I put directly, and it doesn't represent ourselves. The whole world is not what you see. So I would like to be authentic, to be kind of naked mentally, I mean. And the second one, kindness, no matter it's forgiveness or it's integrity or it's peaceful, it's patient, and overall it's be kind to the world, because everyone is different. If you want to be kind, you can easily forgive people, you can easily be patient. and
Yeah.
things got much easier. And the third one is excellence. Why I pick that? Because that's our life vitality. We want to chase for better, to be excellence, no matter it's leadership or it's, intelligence or like wisdom. It's just we want to be better, be excellent. That's why I picked the 3. Thank you.
Wow, thank you
much,
so
Libby.
much. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing it. I love it. I love to hear other people's perspectives because we all have our own internal dialogue on what we think of each of these and how they relate to us. Thank you.
Maybe a couple of them more. Maryam,
Sure. Absolutely.
Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you. Greetings, Toastmasters. And a special good evening to I call her the guest, the keynote speaker. I was blessed to see you live and direct in the Bahamas. And from the beginning to end, I was all in tears. It was such a gut-wrenching speech, and you were it was raw, authentic. I bring you greetings from District 27, District 36 in the United States. It's a blessing and a pleasure to be here with you again tonight. I chose authenticity as the first one because I was tired of just wearing the mask. I want to show up as my true self. What you see, this is who I am. And by me being authentic and being vulnerable, it will encourage others to be the same. The next one I chose was humility, because I can't be authentic without humility. Humility, I align it as well with integrity. It's the core. Integrity is the core of who you are. And it's something that I believe you have to keep working at. We know what's right, we know what's good, but sometimes we veer off. So that's why I said integrity is something it's constant. We have to keep working at it. And then joy. Everybody needs a little joy in their life. And when I come to the table, I bring joy, it can pull joy, draw joy out from the others. Forgiveness, I struggle with that. I was carrying so much. It was a backpack. The backpack was heavy, but I didn't want to let it go because it felt comfortable. It became a conversation piece. So forgiveness is something I struggled with for a long time. It's still a work in progress, but I'm not where I was.
Wow. That was so inspiring. You just spoke straight to my heart. I felt like I was learning so much as you were talking. It was pure wisdom. And I don't even know why I didn't see you in person, or maybe I did. I don't know if we spoke, but if I had seen you, I would have given you a big hug, and I would have loved to connect with you in person. But
thank you. So many people clamored around you for pictures. And when they stopped it, I was the second after the cutoff. I said, oh man, but yes.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I would have loved a hug, but I'm sending you a virtual hug and so much love and blessings. I'm so, so grateful that we got to share this with each other now. I feel like I'm getting to know everyone, and maybe people getting to know each other as well. So thank you so much. That was lovely and beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing
God
that.
bless. Thank you.
Since a lot of people are talking about authenticity and expressing vulnerability, Maryam, I would want to ask, it was probably your first time at a world stage.
Yeah.
What was sure, I understand it comes from an authentic place, but it requires a lot of courage as well, right? To put yourself out there in such a raw state. So how did you do that?
How did I get on the stage?
Yeah, how did you gather so much courage to put yourself out there in front of the world being so raw?
To be honest, I feel like it was a story, or it was a moment rather, an experience that was awaiting to come to life for so many years. And it's gonna sound weird, but at many points in my life, as I traveled by myself, even after my diagnosis and for other times and other stories, and had many difficulties, I remember within this difficulty. I remember being in Barcelona by myself, and I kept tripping everywhere and missing steps. And I kept talking to, because I'm spiritual, and I was talking to the universe and to God and saying, God, why are you doing this to me right now? Like, why aren't you helping me out here? And I remember thinking, I know all these things are going to make a story one day, and I want to overcome it so that I can tell it in front of the world. So I feel like it was such a buildup of this fire that was in my heart that I just wanted to let out for people, that feeling that I wanted to share with them, the struggles, but also the happy moment, the moment that I was standing there with them. For me, that was the moment that I was looking for. I just didn't know how to put it into words. I had no idea I would become a speaker. I had no idea I would be speaking on a world stage. But it was a moment that I was kind of just developing. And eventually, when I got my diagnosis, at many times, I thought to myself, wow, this is my purpose. This is what I was supposed to be doing. And this is a blessing. And that's when I switched from it being something bad to it being, or curse, to it becoming a blessing for me. And I was grateful for it because it was an opportunity for me to make something out of it. So to be honest, I did not even think. I was under so much adrenaline. Of course, I was really nervous, but I was so excited to finally have that moment where I would tell the world how it felt for me and how I went all that way and how I got there today. So that's why I chose to deliver the straw speech for the semifinals and talk about my journey. I hope that answered your question.
No, it absolutely did. Yes, Arnie, did you have a question for Maryam?
Yes, Raji. Yeah. Hi, Miss Mimi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Besides Darian Lacroix or Mark Brown as coaches, I'm most impressed with your relationship with Patty. How did you develop that relationship? It seems to be she's the central life and death of your evolution, your growth in Toastmasters. Tell us
Yeah.
about it.
Thank you so much for that question. And I'm happy this is being recorded. I want her to watch it. But that's what I meant. And that's the reason why I included the support system and the community people and mentors and coaches along the way, because I believe that when you're open to receiving those kind of people, that's when they come into your life. And that is, Patty really came into my life at a time where I most would have liked her to come into my life. So it was unexpected, but it was such a friendship that formed like very spontaneously. And it was thanks to Scott McLaughlin, my mentor, who actually introduced me to Patty and said, you know what? It was before I even started competing. He said, Maryam, because I joined the first year, I couldn't compete because I didn't have my 2 levels, right? So I had to wait for the next year. And he said, Maryam, you're going to get along with Patty so much. She's so much like you. You have so much in common. You have to meet each other. And so it was a back and forth. Yes, we're going to meet. We're going to talk. But eventually we met. And the way we did that is she interviewed me on her podcast. And I truly didn't feel like it was an interview. I felt like it was a conversation, heart to heart. We ended up sharing our personal stories before and after. We both cried, I think. We became friends on the spot, and then we ended up praying with each other. And it was just such a beautiful bond. And I remember her encouraging me throughout my contest journey. And if I can share a moment that is so precious with you that I had with Patty, it was during the district, because we're in the same district, District 61. During the competition, I gave my speech. I was the first one out of 8 people to pass. And I remember the whole time I had a friend with me who accompanied me. And I was telling her, oh, it wasn't good. Definitely not going to make it. Forget it. I don't even want to. I want to be outside of the room when they announce it, because I'm going to be so embarrassed and so ashamed. And I remember Patty holding my hand. I was sitting here and she was sitting to my right. And she was holding my hand when they were announcing it. And every time they announced the name, her grip got stronger, and she said, "Just wait, Maryam. There's something greater for you out there. I know there's a plan for you. You did well. Trust me on that." And she walked me through that moment, and to me that was everything. Even if I hadn't gone through, it was such a bond of, you know, building this friendship, this support, this uplifting you know, kind of relationship that to me it meant everything. So that was a moment that I'll always keep in my heart. And then of course they announced my name, and she started saying, "I told you." So it was a beautiful moment, and I felt like she was happier for me than I was happy for myself. And she was there doing the same exact thing for the finals. I remember very well. And
Thank you so much. Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
On behalf of 101, District 101, we love you.
Thank you. I love you back so much more. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that. And also, it's really important to have such people in our support system, right? Who cheer us more than we cheer ourselves, because some days when we are not feeling ourselves, you really need that nudge or push coming in and saying, no, you have to believe in yourself. And
exactly. And I spoke with her right before I got on here.
oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Got your extra dose of energy and encouragement. That's awesome. So I do want to basically touch upon, and maybe just like a message to all our members who are probably on the fence of competing. You had to wait 1 year to finish your pathways, but you did not waste 1 more year. You directly jumped into competition. And I do understand contest is a lot of preparation. So for all our members who are here today and probably on the fence, whether they should compete or not, what would you tell them?
I would say that you don't need to compete just to compete, or just to be better, or just to win something. If you're competing, it's because you have something that you want to share with the world. And it could be a very simple story with a very big message. You know, you can turn something so simple into something. As long as you believe in that message, you can write any story you want, as long as you have that message you want to share with the world. And I would definitely encourage you to not deprive the world from the beauty you have to share with them, to not deprive the world from the message you want to share, because you don't know who you can help in that audience. And I remember repeating that. Darren LaCroix was telling me, Maryam, it's not about you, it's about your audience. And he kept telling me to repeat these words. And Alexandre Matt, same thing. He was helping me repeat the same sentences. There's someone in my audience who needs hope. There's someone in my audience who needs to hear this today. And so just remember that if you're on the verge and you're not sure, that there is someone in your future audience who needs to hear your message. Please go for it. You never know where it can lead you.
That's a beautiful way to inspire. So anybody who is rethinking or not thinking, I think, like Maryam said, the world needs to hear your message. Somebody will really benefit and get the help. And like we just recently discovered, even in District Showtime, which was organized in October, that your story does matter. So it's going to give hope, give inspiration to somebody that you don't know. So thank you so much, Maryam, for putting that out so beautifully. And again, it's a very authentic expression of emotion that connects all of us as human beings. So I think...
yes, absolutely.
With that, we are almost at the top of the hour. I would want to thank you so much for taking out the time and coming visiting us here at District 101. I had the pleasure of seeing you in person at your semifinals and finals. So I'm so glad that this could happen and all our members could witness your magic as well and sharing your message. I think, thank you so very much for sparing your time with all of us here. And I thank all our audience as well for taking out time and being here for the duration of 60 minutes. Thank you so very much for attending.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Yes, and please